I've made an instrument out of an old propane tank. Sounds pretty cool, right? Now let me show you how I did it. This is the cute little propane tank that I'm going to be making my drum out of. I've removed the top brass fitting, and it was such a serious pain that I had to drill it out. I also cleaned out the inside and made sure that all the gas was gone. Now the next step is to remove all this rust and paint, and to also remove this metal part at the bottom. It's quite hard to get a grip on this thing. You can see it rolling around the place, and I don't want that happening when I'm cutting it with my angle grinder. So here you can see me placing some wooden strips onto my table, and then I'm going to drill them into place. This is gonna be good if I am going to work on the side of the whole product, but if I want to work on the top or the bottom part, I need to fix the whole cylinder in place, and for that these wooden supports are just not gonna work. So I found a bucket, a plastic bucket, and I'm gonna put it in there, and it's gonna be just fine. This metal cylinder is fixed to the bottom part with these 4 welds, and I will need to grind them off. I cut the ring perpendicularly because I can't get my angle grinder into the small crevice that holds the welds, so I'm gonna need to bang it out and expose those welds so I can cut them off nice and neatly. This took about a half an hour's worth of work, and it was pretty tiring since I was banging around with the hammer and then trying to fit my angle grinder to get those welds out. But eventually I decided on just using the hammer, and I broke the welds with the hammer and this bar. Finally, some progress. Now all that's left is this little one, and there you go. Okay, let's move on to the top part. Man, it was a pain to get this out of the plastic bucket. It was not such a good idea, but at least it held it steady. I'm just gonna grind off these small pieces of weld that were left on the top of the propane tank, and this will make it easier for a nice smoother finish, and it won't mess up my sandpaper when eventually I have to sand the whole thing down. So here you can see the bottom is pretty round, and I think that I can work with this, and my tank drum is gonna look awesome. I was an idiot for trying to use a hacksaw to cut this thing off. I didn't want to mess up with the angle grinder, but yeah, this took ages and I made like 0 progress. So it's time to switch out the tools. At this point, I'm still a bit wary about using an angle grinder on a propane tank. You can understand why. And I've taken some precautions. So for example, I've left the tank with the spigot off for like a month, and then left it for another month filled with water. And I rinsed it out with some soapy water, so there shouldn't be any more residue that could explode on me. And there you go, that's it cut off. And now I have a beautiful little round cylinder. Initially, I was scared I was gonna probe through with the angle grinder and it was going to be too rough of a tool to sand it off. But then I measured the thickness of the propane tank and it was 5 millimeters, so it's very, very thick. And I think that's gonna do something good for the resonance of the whole drum. This was the dirtiest part of the job, because I had to sand off every single piece of rust and dirty paint, and in the end I ended up with something really shiny and I think a good starting point. This will need a coat of paint in the end, but for now it's gonna do just fine. Alright, hopefully the hard part is done. Now I need to select the notes that I want to have on my drum. And I don't know that much about music, but I can play a bit of piano and a bit of guitar. So let's head over to the piano and let's select the notes. This is the crappy little tuner app that I'm going to use to tune my drum. It may not be the best, but it's gonna do the job just fine. I have 4 higher notes and 4 lower ones, and also a very deep note, D3. This is going to be the ding, so the middle note of my drum. The rest of them are going to be on the perimeter. Okay, let's get back to the drum. I know, can you get any more scientific than this? It really doesn't matter what you use for a template. The only thing that matters is that there is a slight difference between the size of the lowest, the lower and the higher notes. So I'm going to be using slightly smaller and slightly larger circles to draw these notes on. I'm marking out 4 lines 45 degrees away from each other. These are going to serve as the guidelines for my notes, since I want them situated equally around the whole perimeter of the drum. This will make sure that there is no real interference between any of the notes. As I've mentioned before, this propane tank has a pretty thick layer on the top of it. So this means I can get away with smaller pieces of metal in between each note, and they won't compromise the rigidity and the stability of the whole tank drum. Alright, my main sound circles are done. Now I'm gonna draw some tangential lines onto these circles, one across from each other. And these are going to serve the purpose of tuning, since the more metal that vibrates, the deeper the sound. So hopefully I'm going to start out with a very high pitch and then move on to a lower pitch as I cut along these lines. I have no idea how long these notes have to be, so how long I have to draw these lines. But I'm gonna draw them as long as I can onto the top of the drum, and as I'm cutting, I'm gonna see how deep the pitch gets and stop when it reaches the desired pitch for each note. And here you can see me trying to find a thin jigsaw blade, and I don't have one, so I need to make one. I'm going to use this benchtop grinder to take off the thickness of this jigsaw blade and make it as thin as possible so that I can cut along these small circles. Workplace safety is the #1 priority, so make sure your benchtop grinder is fixed to the table and also that you're holding it with some pliers and not your bare hands. Don't do what I'm doing. This is stupid. I managed to get about a half a centimeter off from this side, and this will mean that I can get a nicer curve on the edges of the drum. At this point, there's no real room for error, so you either do it or you quit. And I decided to give it a shot and to start with my angle grinder on the ding. I'm cutting only as deep as the thickness of the drum, and then I'm moving on to my jigsaw. This is the first note, so I'm moving very, very slowly, and as you can see, it's already producing some sound. Although it's really, really high pitched. That is good. I need to work on it and get it lower, so I need to cut more. So here we go, cutting out another large chunk. You can see the pitch is lowered dramatically. But it's still nowhere near where I want it to be. So this means more cutting, more hitting, more tuning. And bam, I broke my blade. Man, I'm gonna have to make another one. This project is taking longer than I had expected. If you like this content and if you appreciate the effort I put in, I would urge you to subscribe. It's showing a higher note now. I don't know why, but as I cut away more material, it disappeared, so it's okay. Now onto the perimeter. The method is the same, but it's gonna be a bit easier since there are some straight lines actually on these notes. And if you want to make a drum like this, I urge you not to use circles, because this took an inexorbitant amount of time. Especially since my jigsaw blade got stuck a couple of times, and this happened. Wow, I broke the pocket, and that is super sad. Now I don't have anything to hold on to this thing. Man, I'm gonna need to figure out something real soon. Yep, that is broken. Up until this point, spirits were high and I thought that I had made some good progress. But as I thought more about the project, I realized that I haven't even tackled the biggest challenge yet, tuning the drum. I have no idea how a handpan is tuned, and this is my shot at figuring it out. So let me show you how I progressed. The deeper I cut, the deeper the pitch. I'll shut up and let you hear the pitch descend. And that's it, perfectly tuned. I'll write down the note and then move on to the next one. Only 7 more to go. These are the 2 finished sounds. They don't really work with my finger that well, but I think that's because of the table, it's blocking the vibrations. Let me try something different. A plastic pen. Wow, that's way different, and it sounds awesome. Let's move on to all the rest of them. I'm not gonna show you everything, but just a couple of snippets. Now I'm way more confident to cut everything to size on the first go, and these notes turned out way better than the first 2, and they also sound a lot better. It's done, it's finally finished, but I need to make it beautiful. So I'm cleaning up the edges with some sandpaper and then I'm going to paint it. I remove all the grease and all the nasty stuff with some isopropyl alcohol, and then I decided to paint the whole thing black and then add some red accents. I think it's gonna turn out great looking. Keep in mind that the paint also adds some weight, and that means that the final tuning will have to be done after it is painted. Man, I can't believe it. It's finally finished. It's drying outside. So let's wait 30 minutes and I'll show you what it sounds like. Now there's an unfortunate problem, because making a new instrument is cool and all, but you need to learn how to play it. And even though I've made this drum, I don't know how to play the drums. So keep in mind that this is some serious amateur play. Okay, now before I show you this, please subscribe to my channel if you like my content and comment what could be improved. Thanks. Okay, now for the drum.